Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where three guys come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. As always, my name is Ian, and I am joined by X-Man.
Hello, everybody.
And Stoney.
Good morning.
So I heard initially that you had some feedback on our podcast. What was that about?
I did. I was talking to somebody who is turning out to be a regular listener to our podcast. And I asked them, what did you like and what didn't you like? And they said, I love everything. And they said, but that X-Man guy, he talks about sex a lot. It sounds like he's a prevert. And I said, whoa, hold on. I'm going to stop this conversation right now. I spoke up for you. I want you to know that. I said, I want you to know he is not a prevert. He is a provert. He lost his amateur status years ago.
Whoa, wait a minute.
I love it. You know what? I'm not the one who has a thing for aliens.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm getting pegged. I don't understand.
Wait a second. I love how we have this growing relationship where we all feel like we're brothers now.
Absolutely.
Where it's like where only I can pick on my brother. You can't do it. That's my
right.
job.
That's exactly it.
That's what it feels like.
I kind of just was sitting over here with my mouth on the floor when you said you stood up for me. I was kind of like, what?
I was like,
you did what?
Exactly. I was like, that's like the older brother saying only I can pick on my little brother.
I thought your job was to throw me under all the time. And so,
right.
Well, you tell them if I cared what they thought, that would be a whole nother thing.
Wow.
But
well, so for this one, we had this idea before of doing a little bit of a current event type episode. So we're gonna try and tackle something right now that's kind of a big topic everyone's talking about, and then of course we'll return to form next week with my topic that I have. So this week.
So are you saying we're having our first special episode?
Yeah, I guess
kind of
so.
cool.
Yeah, it's hard to say special with the topic that we're talking about, but it's the.
Well, it's bringing up a lot of emotions in a lot of people for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Right, of course.
Well, somebody want to clue me in? What are we talking about?
It is the all the information involving the Gabby Petito case.
Oh.
All that stuff.
That's been going on for months.
Yeah. Or at least a solid month.
The culmination of it right now is that his parents have been arrested.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So say more about that. I the last thing I heard today was they had some divers out diving in the water at a national wildlife preserve in Florida.
Before we get started, just to preface, we're recording this episode on, and I hate to date it, but we're recording it on the 22nd of September. So again, if by the time you guys hear this, there may be more information that comes out that we don't know. So again, just bear in mind that we're not at the forefront of probably all the information given at the time of the release of this episode. Yeah.
First, it's a tragic story.
Yes.
I mean, just a really tragic story. If there's somebody out there that doesn't know what this story is about, I mean, it's a young girl and her boyfriend, and they were traveling across country in a white van.
It sounds like an awesome trip, to be honest.
Well, if you looked on social media, it looked like an amazing trip because they were posting on Instagram and on social media saying this adventure that they were having, going to all these places. Right. But then something went terribly, terribly wrong at the end of August, right?
Yeah, exactly.
End of August.
And
then you have the 911 call where you can hear him actually slap her on the 911
call.
So
they were fighting,
They were fighting,
mm-hmm. So they're fighting on this trip big time. But was it just once, or wasn't there a second? Was there a second?
There was the
instance?
call.
The initial story that I heard before all the extra information comes out was at the end of August, they went to Grand Teton. Yeah. And then by the time September 1st comes around, he's back home with the van, but she's not there. And that's one of that for me, it felt like
that's weird.
Yeah, it felt like a horror movie almost, where it's like a couple goes out and then one doesn't return.
Well, why would he come all the way back home
not
to say anything?
Not even back home. Whenever I learned the timeline of stuff, they left in Long Island, New York to go
July
start the trip.
2nd is actually
and then
when
he went back to his home in Florida with the van. So it's crazy that the van was hers, I believe so.
Yes, the van was hers.
And then they left from there to go on the road trip. And then, of course, as all that was playing out, by the time the events all took place, by September 1st, I think he's back home to his home in Florida with his family with her van, and she's not there.
But what's weird about that, though, is like if he knew that she was gone or missing or something,
right?
Why would he leave where he was to come home? That's so strange.
Yes, it definitely.
It's so weird.
It feels to me. It felt very I felt very uncomfortable hearing about all of it, and I was like, it just feels so incriminating almost.
I tell you, there's something wrong, not only when that happened,
right,
but also when the first thing that the guy does instead of talking to the police is to hire an attorney. I mean,
oh yes, exactly.
That's
absolutely
that's kind of a
right,
and he's got a gag order from his attorney not to say a word.
And again, everything that the family has said so far, his family has said was like attorney jargon that just felt soulless and doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like the tweets and the stuff the family has said is very much like Miss Petito and like, I hope that the family's okay. And it's like if that is your potential daughter-in-law, it's so cold. It's like, and,
well, her family is freaked out, and their lawyer, her family's lawyer, he was scathing towards their attorney because the attorney, his attorney, actually denied that the body that they found was hers, even though there was an autopsy report. It's kind of like, what? I mean, this is crazy. This is like straight up crazy town,
right?
In this story, I mean, it really is, and. I have to like jump on this first of all, kind of from the beginning to say this, I think that this happens more than we think. I think that this kind of stuff, missing persons and stuff like that. And also the other thing that I think happens a lot is people put stuff out there on social media that their life is so kick-ass, but it's really not.
Yes, exactly. Those are 2 points that I was wanting to bring up as well. There's like, for me, it thought about talking about again throughout the generations sort of thing of like, again, I think people get away with it still to this day, but how much more could you have gotten away with it in the past where like the technology may not have been there to like follow someone's every move, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, because they found her grave using a really cool approach where it shows kind of the fresh dirt being moved and stuff like that. So they were able to locate her body using really high tech stuff. But I'll tell you this, I know that in the past, especially in probably mine and Stoney's generations, a lot of this stuff was quieted. It was kind of swept under the rug and stuff. So this was more like the family deals with its own crap. But now it's very sensationalized and very,
welcome to the social media world.
Yeah, right. And so, and the other thing is, you can't believe what you see. Yeah. You really can't believe what you read either. Because here they are posting what a great trip they're having. And it's not great at all. In fact, it's terrible. But I will say this. I was like, our kids, like I have 2 elementary age kids right now.
Right.
This is the crap they're going to have to deal with going forward. I mean, this is the kind of life that they're going to have to, be aware of and kind of situationally what to be aware of so that they're not putting themselves in any kind of danger. But I'll tell you right now, social media, as great as it is and as connective as it keeps us, I mean, I connect with people who I went to second grade with, but and so for the benefit of that is terrific. But man, this side is really the underbelly, and it's pretty dark.
It's
well, one of the things that kind of caught me was that he returned home on September the 1st. And when you're looking at the timeline, the first altercation was the 12th of August. Was the 911 call where the police let them go. And then it wasn't till September the 11th when she was even reported as missing. Right. What happened for those 10 days?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Yeah, I think that from what I had heard, they couldn't, Gabby's family couldn't get in contact with Brian. Is that his name?
Yeah.
They couldn't get in contact with Brian, but they know that he showed up back in Florida. And so whenever they heard the news that he was in Florida, they kept trying to contact her. I think they found out a few days later that he so I think that's the confusing part, is that he shows up September 1st. A few days later, I think they find out that he's home and she's not. Then they give a few days to try and contact her, and then with no response, obviously, and then they file that she's a missing person.
Okay, so it takes 10 full days for all that to transpire.
I believe so. I could be wrong, though. That's where
well, and they may not have known that he was back for a couple of days.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that is,
Well, I mean, that makes sense and everything, but my God, I mean, what a hot mess this case is. And if what, like, I didn't know the thing about the parents being arrested. Right. I mean, it makes sense because it's kind of like, oh, okay, now you went hiking again. Right. Like if I'm the parent and I know that all hell's broken loose on this and that it's a national story now, do you really think I'm going to let my kid go hiking?
And that's the crazy part is like just to think about it like that, literally a month before all this right now currently is transpiring, he like proposes to her. They like go on this crazy road trip and all this happens. It's like, for me, it makes me think like you think you know somebody pretty well, and then maybe not always the case, and you really need to give people time to like show their true colors.
Well, a road trip will do that.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right.
Closed up true. In a van, that'll do that.
Especially like I think
they said they've seen him fighting and arguing a couple of times. He had bruises and scratches,
and I think all that started happening like 2 weeks into their trip.
Yeah, so
it's like
when the police got involved, it was about 3 weeks into it.
Right.
And when you hear the police talk about why they didn't arrest him, because she was saying we're in love, we just had a little argument and blah blah blah. But she's sitting there crying. When you watch the body cam footage of it, she's just devastated. Yeah, she's a mess.
Yeah.
I'd have put his ass in jail.
I mean, it's clearly him that did this stuff because I mean, well, the other thing is, think about the fact that he got picked up by, hitchhiking, very close to where they found her body, and acted all weirded out when they said they were going to go to like, what was it? Jackson Dam or something, and then ended up somewhere else. But anyway, and he got upset and he said, "Stop the car, I want out." And so like in the middle of his ride that he's hitchhiked for, he makes them pull over the car and stop and let him out because he thought that they were going one place, but they were actually going another. It just had the same kind of stuff, same kind of name in it. And so anyway, so he's clearly like in his head, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Because like that's the thing for me is like I'm trying to think. I don't do this often, and I don't want to.
What
like,
think?
No, I mean, but is like put myself in his shoes for a second, where it's like I'm trying to think about like something escalating that far to where something. Let's just say for devil's advocate or whatever, like an accident happens or whatever, and then you're like, oh shit. Like at that point, it's like I feel like there are so many other things that I would do before like packing up all my stuff, driving back to my parents' house, and then like getting an attorney. It just feels like it's all the wrong decision. I'm not trying to advocate for him to like, get away with this, but it's like it just feels like you're really setting yourself up for like, I did something wrong, I don't want to get caught, and I don't want to talk. It's just like
the writing's on the wall that whatever happened, it got to the point of no return.
Yes.
So I really think that threshold got crossed.
Right.
And he knew that it was over.
Right.
It was done.
Yeah.
And so he took her down. And I mean, that's very sad. But you know what? This kind of abusive relationship where it escalates and it ends tragically.
Right.
It's a story that we've all heard. I mean, there are shows that literally make this a continual, story time after time after time. And so, the fact that it got that far, like Stoney said, I hadn't really thought about the fact that they were in the car together, but road trip.
Well, and then think about how much more since the pandemic, domestic violence is
that's a good
severely on the rise.
Yeah.
I mean, severely. We've been cooped up for almost 2 years now.
Yeah. Right.
And
especially in somewhere like New York where they were, I think, residing.
So does this guy then have a claim? I mean, does he have a claim to make about his mental? Because, actually, the police reports kind of corroborate it, because they said that when they talked to her, that the way that they handled it, first of all, they handled it
terribly.
Oh,
wildly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was such a weird way that they handled it, because they kind of concluded that this wasn't so much a domestic violence kind of thing as it was kind of a mental breakdown. Like she had a mental breakdown. So it kind of made it feel like, but I tell you what, you put a situation like this under the pressure cooker of a pandemic, and weird stuff happens.
So do you guys think those, like the original, like whenever they pulled them over on the side of the road that one time, whenever he saw that it was like kind of frantic, you think they didn't handle that correctly?
Well, we weren't there.
Oh, of course, you're right.
All we have is their body cam, but when you have enough,
I watched the whole hour-long like body cam footage of that, and I have a personal opinion about it.
Okay, well,
I think that for the information that they were given and in the moment, for people that I know that are in that field, I think they handled it the best way they could.
Okay.
Like for me, it's like I think that they were, at least the police officer, that the body cam footage that I saw, that was like I said, the whole hour-long, confrontation or whatever you want to call it. He, I think, spoke to her in such a way that he tried to calm her down and de-escalate the situation.
Well, they've received a lot of praise for how they handle it. My wife is on your team,
right?
So she's on team, handle it well.
And
I don't know.
The only thing is, like, it's hard to look back at it in retrospect. Like, very funny. Is to look.
Is it just what we do?
Yeah, it's hard to look back. Like, I mean, it's hard to look at it retroactively and then not try and blame yourself for like not doing more in the moment. Like, and from the police officer's perspective, like knowing that, like, again, that he potentially almost definitely killed her.
So what would you say to those police officers? Because I mean, I get your point, and they probably feel like crap right now. Right. They probably do have some feelings of like, God, if I'd have just done this or said this, or like, what would you say to them right now? What would be your word to them?
That my dad and my brother both work in, like, as EMS paramedics, and I know that they go through a whole lot and they see some shit, and I know that it's not easy. And I think the best thing I could tell those people, if they're at all listening, is I know that there's nothing that I can say that can probably make the situation better for you, but just know that, like, I don't think you should blame yourself for what happened. I think that in that moment with what was given, I think you did a great job and that you were very commendable, and that I understand if you feel like you blame yourself for, letting that guy go. Mm-hmm. But, that's, just, I mean, I don't know.
Okay, so what say you?
Only so much you can do.
Mr. Stoney?
I tend to agree, but part of the problem in abusive relationships goes both ways.
Right.
Is that the victim, I got to say this in a very careful way.
Right.
The victim is part of the problem,
mm-hmm.
because they don't call the police.
Right.
They don't press charges.
They aren't to blame.
Because
usually it's out of fear, right?
It's usually out of fear. I mean, there's a whole lot of
embarrassment,
things. Right.
All kinds of things are at play.
And that's the tragic part.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to, and it's hard, when you're in a relationship.
Does anybody know their ages? Like, what is the age spread here?
22.
You want to say she's 22.
And how old was he? Does anybody know?
I can look it up, though.
Yeah. I wonder kind of what the age difference is, too, because that can be a factor, too. Like, if he's a lot older than she is, that can be a very controlling type situation, too. That can create a lot of power dynamics in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, because I don't think I've heard what his age is.
In our generation, especially, I fell down. I fell down the stairs. Men and women, they handled those things differently because there was a lot of shame in it.
Yeah.
And it was, you kept it in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And now with all this social media, and thank God people are stepping up and talking about, sexual harassment, abuse in relationships.
I just want it noted that Stoney was the first person to bring up sex.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Carry on. Sorry.
That, we need to get to a point where, people feel safe.
Yeah.
Asking for help.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, I do think that that's true. It's just that I'm not sure how realistic it is because, I mean, we've proven over and over as a culture that we're not going to, I mean, what's going to have to shift in our culture to make that a reality? I mean, that's going to be a big shift.
Yes.
A really big one. That's a hard one. For sure. I tell you something else that kind of made me think about this, is kind of like, how did he get her out there to where he buried her body?
Right.
Like, did he lure her? Did he kill her, and then carry her or drag her out there? Like, what took place? There's so many unknowns right now.
So exactly. And then there's like the other point that like the YouTube couple that he hitchhiked from, they like driving around and found the van in like this trail or whatever. And so like for me, this is where like, again, the details get kind of weird, is like from the moment that like they caught that footage of like the van and then him apparently killing her, like at one point, where does he hitchhike? And then why does he hitchhike there, but then go back for the van to then drive home? You know what I'm saying? That's where like I'm getting confused as to what.
Why would he put himself out there in the public eye like that?
I have to wonder if drugs or alcohol wasn't part of this.
Right.
Well, you know what? I haven't seen that but they haven't also released that part, I think, of the autopsy. I mean, all they've said is that it's a homicide. Clearly.
They're not going to give the details of any of that, and because that's going to help build their case.
Right. I can't figure out whether or not he's 23 or 37. There's apparently claims that he's 37, but there's other claims that are saying that's not true.
Okay, so if he's 37, that's a huge power dynamic.
Right.
If he's the same age as her, that may not be as big of a factor or whatever. Right. But I'll tell you this, these are young people.
Right.
I mean, these are not people that you would do, and these aren't second relationship kind of. So this is one of those first relationship, young people, and a lot of times what happens is there's like triangulation and young people, their relationships, and it ends up in murder or something because maybe the girl is involved with two guys or you're a guy with two girls, and so there's a triangle involved. But this doesn't have any third party in it or anything like that. So I really, I just think that they got on this road trip. I think you're right, Stoney. I think under the pressure cooker of a pandemic.
Right. And it also is like, how long have they known each other or been in a dating relationship before the proposal / trip? Because it's like, if they've been in like a long-term relationship before then, it's like it builds the case in one area of like, what happened now instead of a year ago or whatever, or like again, if they just met recently and of course then they just were like infatuated with each other, and then he proposes and then they go on a trip, then it's like that's even crazier that like they've only been together for upwards of a month or two, and then you really start to figure out things about somebody, especially if you're in a car with them, like what we've been saying, for like 2 to 3 weeks, and then you start to see all the discrepancies with somebody.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Stoney. Like you've been around enough investigative work to have an opinion here, and I have a real important question, and that's if his parents have been arrested, and if they think that he's left the country, he's flown out of here, do they think they know where he went?
I doubt they do.
Okay.
I think the parents did enough to make they moved a vehicle. They made it look like he committed suicide in the woods. Hence the hike that he supposedly went on.
And there's a trail cam too. There's somebody's trail cam got set off, and it looks like it could be him or something like that. So there's that.
So I think obviously the parents have done something, because they're under arrest.
But I have a question, though. So if they think that, then why are they spending resources and money having a dive team of 10 divers go out and dive in this swampy area?
You have to cover all the bases.
Okay.
You have to cover all the bases.
But is the family doing that, or is that somebody else?
No, it's the police. The police called in the dive team, and this dive team is an expert dive team. They are low visibility dive specialists that can go very deep in very deep water, but also in very murky water. And of course, that's a swampy area in Florida.
And you have to think about it like this: you have to eliminate all the possibilities. So if they go into the lake and they don't find him, well, we know he's not here.
Yeah.
So he didn't commit suicide here, like you're saying, so he must be somewhere else.
Is this going to be one of those things where, his body disappeared in the swamp and gators could have eaten him, anything could have happened, and we just never hear again? Like, how does this going to end?
Dude, I really hope that there's there's a little part inside of me that also like worries that he's going to that we're going to find him.
I think he's in another country.
I mean, well, possibly.
I think he's gone.
So you think this is going to be 15 years later?
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I'm nervous that we're going to find his body and then he committed suicide.
Okay.
And then it's that's where, and we'll get no answers.
See, that's kind of what the camp is that I'm in.
Right.
I think they'll, if they cough up a body,
right,
and it's him and they verify that's him, it's going to be, your guess is as good as mine.
Exactly.
And there's going to be all kinds of, conspiracy.
Of course. Yeah. Forever.
I mean, you have to think about it like this. If he broke under, being in a confined van, driving around, what's his mental state? Let's just say he didn't commit suicide.
Yeah.
How long it is till he decides to do that on being on the run.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
being on the run's hard.
I don't think he has any sort of connection with social media or anything.
I want to hear some of the other rabbit trails though. I mean, I want to hear from his past girlfriends, his relationships.
Right.
I want to hear from, like their friends, like people that they hung out with.
A thing to think about too is the family. Let's just say your son comes home, is an adult of some kind, is I killed my fiance. I don't know what to do.
I'd be like,
you're
going to turn yourself in.
Exactly. But the thing is, again, that wasn't, that I don't think, or at least there's no evidence, that was the family's first choice. Yeah. That the family was we have to protect you and cover up your tracks, which makes me think, how long have they been doing that?
Well, again, this is going to boil down to his age. If he's 37,
right,
I'm going to say, if you're an adult,
yeah,
I'd be like, you're a grown-ass man. Think for yourself. But if this is a 23-year-old,
right.
I would be a little more hands-on with something like that,
Yeah.
But as a dad, I would have to say,
right,
listen, we all mess up,
yes,
but this is a big one, and you're going to have to face this the rest of your life, probably. Right. And so here's the deal. This action had consequences.
Yeah.
And the sooner that you get to the consequence,
right,
the more peace you're going to have in your life.
Yeah, of course.
And
again,
I like Ian's kind of spin on that. How long have they been doing this? What if this is a family of serial killers?
because
of social media, they finally got caught.
Yeah.
They've been doing this for 10 or 15
either that
years.
or just either that or like I said, even if he's in his 20s and he's just been a problematic child that the family
covering up his tracks.
Just cover up his tracks. But again,
according to some of the reports, he's an expert hiker. This guy is not just a little bit of a hiker.
Right.
This guy's knows. They even speculated and said that he would be smart enough at his level of hiking that he would be able to actually move at night and then stay still during the day so that they would make it very hard for them to detect him. And so, unless you just happen to luck out and hit him with a heat gun, and saw his body heat or something, you're not going to catch somebody moving in a swampy area at night, So,
and that's the thing is maybe let's just say, for instance, he's been a problem child for a while, and again, the family keeps having to apologize for his actions or but this is the first time we're now he's gone too far and it's but again, they
caught by social media.
Yeah. But now it's just second nature for them to go we just have to,
Here's something I was thinking about last night. What if he had planned this the whole time?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
What if he took her on that trip knowing that this is what he was going to do? That's a serious, that's killer behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of stuff happens.
Yes.
And so what if this is all premeditated, the whole thing, her posting on social media? What if all of it is premeditated?
That makes me feel really weird inside.
It gives me creepy.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's getting close to Halloween. That's giving me the creeps, man.
There's a lot of sick people on this planet.
Yeah.
I don't think the normal public realizes how many active serial killers are loose on the streets.
Yeah. But if I'm his parents, if I'm an enabler of a killer,
right,
that's a tough one, man. I understand protecting your child and stuff,
right,
but part of raising another human being is doing that in a way that is to make them a productive human being within the context of the world. Right. And so, when your child strays from that and makes decisions that takes them out of that, I think the most loving thing you can do as a parent is provide them with an encouragement towards peace.
Right.
The only peace this guy is ever going to have is to face the consequences for the actions that he's taken.
Especially now that he's running.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, it's just
he's going to look over his shoulder until he's found.
right.
Period.
And it's just
That's not a peaceful way to live.
No,
it's
dude.
not. It's being on the run's hard.
Right.
You know, you have nobody you can count on.
Right.
Why did
Every
Stoney
Sunday.
say that so definitively? Like, I kind of feel like he's on the run.
He knows people who knows people, you know.
I
Come
know a
on.
guy. I know a guy.
I know a guy.
I know a guy. But it's once you do that, you know, every sound,
Oh yeah.
every
Yeah.
everything,
Every
you
twig
hear,
snap
every-
is
everything.
I knew a guy. Again, here we go. Hear me out.
Oh my God.
For all you guys who
He
are,
actually did know a guy.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, for all you guys who are playing the drinking game, every time Ian references Canada, take a shot.
Oh God.
Here we go.
I'd be shit faced.
Hear me out. When I lived in Canada, I knew a guy who was like digitally like that. When I tell you, he he always checked his footsteps online and like always had like VPNs and and all that kind of stuff. But was like, when I tell you that guy was paranoid about everything. And the funny thing is that I'm pretty technologically savvy myself. So there was a few times where like it felt bad, but it was also because again, he always talked about it all the time. There was a few I have a pretty safe network in my house. I like to have it that way. I have some checks and balances in place. So that way I know that I'm protected in my house and on the internet and everything. And so there was one time where he was around and he stayed at my house for a little while and he found some things, whatever. And of course he was just like, this guy's really good. You know, he knows what he's talking about. He's got all this stuff here. He's because he didn't know what network it was and it was actually mine. And of course I was sitting there the whole time going, yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
So diabolical.
Exactly. But I was like, oh man, I have no idea what you're talking about. And but I couldn't live like him because it was just like the same thing. It was like every little thing he did on the computer or he did any interactions and stuff. It was like
you're running in your head the whole time.
Right.
I mean,
man,
it never stops.
There's no sleep.
It's exhausting.
There's no sleep.
Even
when you're sleeping, you're not sleeping.
He had good points that he was making to me about like about a few things I needed to fix about how I was doing certain things. But then it just got to that. It quickly got to that point where he was like, I was like, I can't think that much about it. It makes me stressed, you know.
So I have a question, and you know, this is going to ask you to like just go with your gut on it. You know, like what trust your gut kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what do you think he did to her? Like, how do you think she died?
I don't.
What do you think
know,
they're going to
dude.
tell us?
It'll
come out, and he, you know, in the days ahead. But
eventually,
what do you think? What do you think he did?
I have a feeling he just snapped.
Yeah.
And beat her.
That's what I think too. Like it's got to
Choked
be
her,
that.
beat her. But I mean, that's you know, we can think. You know, there's 1,000.
Sure, we
different
could
things he
speculate,
do,
but I just didn't know if you like.
I think he
I-
just snapped.
I don't think they had any weapons in the van, obviously. So I mean, I think it could either be like a blunt force trauma or asphyxiation or something like that. Like it's a, you know, it's going to be.
If there is a weapon involved, I'm going back to my premeditation theory.
Oh yeah, dude.
I'm gonna say that this guy
yeah.
planned it, and because I mean, why else would you take a weapon on a road trip?
Right.
to protect yourself.
Okay, but it'd be one
Hello?
thing if like that's
Yeah,
necessary, but when you're just 20 and you're just going on a happy-go-lucky road trip with your girl,
I would still have a weapon.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. But again, I don't think a couple of 20-something-year-old hippies would have a weapon. Let's hear me out.
Yeah,
Because I heard a few of their conversations about stuff, and they're very much like, you know, no plastic waste, save the earth, and you know, I'm not saying that they don't carry weapons.
you've got
but
to
I'm
remember
just
these
saying-
are millennials, Stoney.
Exactly. I'm just saying that more often than not, again, they're probably not going to be having a weapons, not the make peace, not war, or whatever it is, or make love, not war. You know.
Yeah, if there's anything more dangerous than a fly swatter, I'm going. It was premeditated. That's the way I'm going. That's where I'm going to land.
Yeah. Maybe.
What's the end?
Yeah.
Why would he? What's the premeditation?
Right. Unless
Yeah,
You have to have. I mean, obviously, only the killer knows what their process is. But what's the process?
just how to kill. I mean, you know, I mean, who knows
a lot
what
of quieter ways to do
there
that.
could be relational stuff though that we don't know about yet, and so it's going to be very interesting in the days ahead, finding out like what is on the periphery of all of this, like who's there, what's their involvement, what are the breaks going to be in this case, because it's gosh, man. But I'll tell you who I hurt for, and that's her family. I mean, just got to be crushed.
It's hard to. I mean, especially like I said, because again, looking back, and again, I think they found the body Sunday, and then as of Tuesday, which for us was yesterday, the autopsy proved that it was in fact her body. And so I was watching videos of them still like holding up pictures like she could be lost, she could be, we just don't know where she is and we just want to find her, and they're sad. And it's just like to know what I know now, that again, that was in fact her body. It's like, oh man, it just hurts.
Well, and I'm wondering what the police are holding back,
right.
And that's got to be on their minds too, because they're not going to cut them in on it because they don't want them to leak it. And so, they're going to be in this constant mode of like wondering until these things. And unfortunately, sadly, there's going to be stuff that we'll never know. I mean,
right. Unless he's
alive, caught and found
and wants to actually talk about it or something,
Yeah.
The police have to keep a lot close to the hilt. You can't let a lot of information out because that's part of your process for testing people, and somebody might accidentally slip and say something that hasn't been released, and then a direction you have to go in that point.
Right.
The only thing that makes me not think it's meditated is just the fighting. The fighting is,
the
being caught fighting, especially, like having other people witness it, having, the police call and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like if you were premeditated, and doing stuff like that, you probably wouldn't want for those things to happen.
I mean, let's look at it realistically. I mean, I think all of us could look at taking some type of a recreational vehicle with somebody you love and going off the grid and going and seeing the country. That's fascinating. That's romantic. Right. That's exciting, especially with the pandemic going on. But then all of a sudden you're in that van 24 hours a day.
Yep.
7 days a week.
3 weeks in.
3 weeks in.
Yeah.
Tired.
And you're not.
And then
driving.
Yeah. And then we're also not factoring in that, like, from that, the body cam footage that they were saying that, like, I think he's probably more okay being like an expert hiker, not having amenities, but I'm not quite sure how comfortable she was with not having like probably a toilet. A shower, and again, she was saying like, again, they were saying that they were in the process of trying to go get more water. So it's like, we also don't know is like how, I mean, they looked healthy enough, but like how well fed are they? Do they have enough water? It's like, it's that point where it's like, not only are we fighting with each other, but now we're also like thirsty and stressed, and it's like that I think could also compound on top of other things of like she could be stressed and having a breakdown, and he could just be over it and also stressed or whatever. And it's like I'm not justifying it, but it just it better strengthens like the foundation that, like you were saying before. I think he just snapped.
I think I think there was a couple of arguments going on, and I think he finally just snapped. I like what you said. They could have been hungry. They could have been thirsty.
Yeah.
Not having a bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Is just insane.
Right. But like I said, initially, like I said, I could probably do okay for, a week or so. But like, again, I would feel like for my own sanity's sake, hitting week number 2 or 3 of like struggling to find water and where we're going to go sleep for the night or where am I going to go take my next shit is like, I would probably get a little tired of that. And
but could you imagine the snapping? And then all of a sudden you killed somebody and now you have to get rid of a body. Right, I mean, that's got to be a crazy, that's got to be a crazy place to find yourself. I mean, and then to have to go and figure out like how to make all of that happen. I mean, all of a sudden this stuff becomes a real thought process. So there's premeditated stuff happening no matter what. I mean, he's had to do some planning. If he's going to dig a grave, he had to plan to do that. Like, I mean, and where to put her and how to do that without getting caught.
Yeah. And then like, it's hard to talk about some of this too, like from we're all in a healthy mindset, for the most part, let's be honest. But it's like I would like to think that I know myself well enough that like in a situation like that, I know how I would handle it, but I also don't know. I've never been in a situation where I needed to survive like that, or I say survive, like that, like the
you're fighting
like the situation
freedom.
That I just posed was like the no food, no water, no shelter sort of thing. Where it's like I don't know myself 3 weeks into not having that and what my mindset would be. I still think that I would be well enough that like an accident was to break out, I would still go like, I need to get this handled by some like officials. Like I can't, I fricked up. That's
well, and I'm wondering if that's what was happening with her. Like, I'm wondering if she was like, I'm in a situation here where this is really come to a different thing, right? I mean, at some point you're kind of you're hostage,
right?
Yeah. Especially at the point where somebody's going to kill you.
But are they also hostage to their own generation? I mean, they're
that's an interesting.
They're not really prepared for a lot of stuff out there.
Hear me out. I know this is kind of a crazy thought, and I was talking with somebody today about this in preparation for this show. She had posed the idea that she's like, it's awful to think about, but again, with us not having any information, like like you said, check all avenues. It's like, what happens if she committed suicide? I mean, like,
and buried herself?
No. That's the thing.
He found her after she committed suicide.
And somehow she snapped or something like that. And then
but why would he run? I mean, at that point,
you're right.
It goes back into everything that we've been talking about. Maybe they didn't have water. Maybe they didn't have food. The mental strain of those 3 weeks on the road. Could have been devastating. They weren't thinking correctly.
And all the fighting,
and the fighting,
the emotional.
And again, I think maybe, like I said, he was there when it happened, or was in the process of trying to stop it, or something.
What if they were both going to do it, and she was the only one that followed through?
Right. And then at that point, it's like again, to think like, that's where, again, this is where it's hard to again put myself in his shoes of, like, like you said, burying the body and then running. Again, I don't know how. I'm trying to put myself with Mallory and myself in that situation of, like, if I was to find her and she committed suicide, it's like, I feel like in the moment I would go, like, I have to go to the police to talk about this, but his mind may go to some other level of, like, I can't trust the police because they're going to blame me for it or something, and then then he just thinks I have to run, or I don't know. That's where, again, that's what the person I was talking to had said. It's like it could go one of many ways, but again, we don't know right now.
Yeah, this is
just an idea.
This is going to be a fascinating.
There's going to be a lot of speculation for a
there
long
is.
time.
Well, and there's going to be a break. I mean, these cases usually have a really big break. I think probably the autopsy's one of them. Right. They know how he killed her. Yeah. That's for sure. I mean,
or she Well, they're not saying
she
suicide. They're saying.
I guess you're right.
Homicide.
They said homicide.
They're saying homicide. So.
Right. Well, and he's gone. So let's just draw the line. I mean, there's not a lot of to speculate about there, but it's kind of like like they know how he did it now. Yeah. So I'm wondering if the break in that is going to help point them to where they think he might be.
Yeah. And I think that, again, we're in such a time right now with the amount of technology and the amount of stuff around us that unless he has a very good understanding of how to go off the grid, I don't see him running away forever.
Without any digital footprint.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the problem.
Without there being a trigger somewhere. Yeah. Where it's like
a camera, a stoplight.
Yeah. Again, the thing is, like,
a bank card transaction. I mean,
if he ever gets a hold of a phone, the problem is nowadays, like, you're able to get like location information, even if it's turned off from a phone. Right. So it's like any kind of like I think that, like, there's maybe the hype of it will go down and they may stop looking so much, but I just feel like if we're gonna keep an eye out for this person, that I don't think that unless he's just gonna, I don't know, go out in the desert somewhere. Even still, I think that, like, if he's still in the United States of some capacity,
I don't think he is.
Maybe.
All right.
When you add all of these things up, we've kind of jumped around a couple of things here,
right?
And we've touched on a couple of things, but what if we can combine those a little bit? What if it was murder-suicide?
Yeah.
And then he chickened out at the end? What if they were so despondent about life with, the fighting and the pandemic and everything, they just decided, let's do a murder-suicide, and he rolled instead of fulfilling his end of the bargain?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's a possibility that leads toward still being homicide and,
Right. And like I said, I guess it depends on, again, we don't have like a weapon of any kind. At least not right now. Again, I think they still have in the police's possession the vehicle or vehicles. I think it's the van is the big thing. So
Well, and the last thing I read on this was that the FBI showed up and they've taken all of his stuff. They also secured another vehicle.
Right.
So they secured another vehicle. They secured all the boxes out of his room. I'm sure that involves anything electronic that he could have. So, I mean, they probably seized all of his accounts and they're probably combing through all of that.
I'd like to know what they took from the parents too. I mean, they are under arrest.
Yeah.
They've done something.
I mean, and also again, just for laughs and giggles, is to better prove like your premeditated function is like if they are able to go through, if the FBI is able to go through all his stuff and he's done a good job, an actual good job of like covering his footsteps online and getting rid of his debit cards, getting rid of his cell phone, and is like has a plan that he was gonna go off the grid, like pretend like he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I know there's ways you can do it, but it just takes time to do it all.
Right.
And so if they go through all his stuff and they're like, we have no trace of him, then it's like, oh man, that guy was really trying. He was thinking about.
I mean, if he's paid cash for all of his gas,
exactly.
like that, there's going to be some, there's going to be some interesting stuff.
If his his search histories, his backlogs, his advertisement information, like all that stuff is all like cleaned off or whatever.
Right.
Then it's like, that was premeditated. He was ready to do something bad and then ready to go off the grid and run away.
So what's your guess? How long is it going to take to solve this?
I'd say about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Right.
How about you?
I was going to say a few months.
Okay, so you think by the end of the year?
I think we may get more information on the end of the year. I'm not sure it's going to be probably like solved though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm probably in the.
What about you?
Probably in the camp of him.
I don't know. I mean, it could go either way, but I'm kind of in the camp. This may take a while because they can't find him. You know, if they they found her body really, really fast, and I would think with as big of a manhunt as they have out for him, this should happen like pretty quick. So if they don't find him this week, I think it's going to take a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing that I kind of brings into question a lot of what we're talking about is like, I have talked about it in a couple episodes that we've had about technology and the future that we're in and social media and all that kind of stuff. Like you had mentioned at the top of the episode, I think, of don't trust people based on what they put on social media as far as what their life is. It is all fabricated and is all.
It's all what they want you to see.
It's all what they want you to think. And again, I know people have realized that over the years, but I just feel like we need to constantly tell ourselves that again there is the surface level and then there's social media, which is like the surface of surface level. It is curated to make you believe that I have this perfect life.
There will be people that saw signs. I guarantee you they'll come forward and they'll say, I knew that they weren't having a good relation. Right. I mean, so there'll be that kind of stuff. And that's unfortunately those people are victims too, because they end up beating themselves up for things that their own inactions.
What if I would have said something?
If I would have just
And
so,
again, like any friends that he has, it's like I'm not sure. I mean, do we know of any of his friends? Did he have any close friends?
Well, to Stoney's credit, the idea of smuggling him out of Florida,
right?
You're talking about one of the easiest places to smuggle in and out of. That's why all the drugs come through there. I mean, you're talking about.
So think about it like this: if they helped him get to part of his destination, and he's such a great hiker.
Yeah,
he could have went anywhere. They could have driven somebody somewhere else and got him on a private plane, and he's out of there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If that's the case, and he's able to drive home on September 1st, and then in the matter of 2 weeks, disappear, and then somehow have connections to hearing that really makes me think.
It goes straight to America's Most Wanted. I mean, that's what it does. I mean, it puts him right up there with the biggest fugitives of the time.
It's crazy.
I mean,
but it also makes me think too, like you were saying before, I didn't think it was premeditated, but the more we start talking about that again, in less than a month, he's able to disappear and then get.
Well, it seems like so many things are premeditated.
Right.
Him driving home, him not saying anything, him going to an attorney, all of these things are premeditated actions, burying her. I mean, just those are all things you have to think about. So if he's got a pattern of premeditating, then it's very likely that he could have premeditated this whole thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we need to find out from his parents, did he kill any cats or dogs when he was a child?
Well, right. And I just hope for her family's sake, I really do hope that this gets resolved and that they find him and that the justice is done and that they get the peace that they need, even though that it'll never settle with them. But for them to get closure on it where they can try to pick up the pieces and move forward. I mean, this is a devastating, terrible thing for a family to go through. I mean, I can't even imagine what this family is going to face, and especially under the pressure cooker of a pandemic and now the spotlight of media hype. And so you're talking about books are going to be written about this. There's going to be movies.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a wild case.
I had a very similar situation with someone I grew up with, and there was a point in time where she was sailing between Australia and New Zealand, and she got lost, and I don't think she's ever been found. And that's just one of those situations too where it's like you can hold out hope that you can find somebody, but then like you never quite know. But in that aspect, but now that we have some kind of closure that that we found a body and we know what's going on, it's like, man, you say closure, but it's, I mean, like you said before, it's just there's not gonna be any rest.
It's never going away.
It's never going away, especially for someone who is so young, like 22. Like you get your whole life ahead of you.
It'll haunt that family for the rest of their lives.
That's hard.
It's very tough, very sad story, really sad, and my heart goes out to that family.
Right, same. It's crazy. You have anything else you want to add before we?
I don't, man. That's just like I said.
It's hard to.
It's such a somber ending, but it's such a terrible tragedy. I mean, just a terrible thing.
If there's anything I guess I can say is I know that there are cases out there that probably go unlooked, and that there are people, missing persons, and probably murders and kidnappings that all go unnoticed. And I know that I think that this one hit people's algorithm on social media just right, and it blew up like a wildfire. And I just know, because we haven't been talking about any of those other ones, doesn't make them any less real, or doesn't make them hurt any less.
Right.
But like, I don't know. It's just crazy that, like, again, how unified it feels like everyone is on this front of, like, everyone is like hearing about this and everyone is mobilizing to find out some sort of information. It's like, I just wish that we could have that level of like
across the board
for
but rich, the poor,
races and ethnicities and all that kind of stuff. But it's also like, it makes me think too, like, other aspects of life too, where it's not just missing persons. Like, I wish that we could all stand together on something and go like, this is unacceptable. And like, I feel like a lot of change could happen if we all had that mindset of like, we can all band together and say that, killing a young person's wrong. But I wish we could do that about, other stuff.
A bunch of other stuff. That's a really good point.
So,
well, I don't know. I like I said, brokenhearted for them. But great point. I definitely think that these other ones that we haven't talked about are highlighted,
right?
Because they haven't been as famous as this one's been made,
right?
I definitely feel for those victims and families as well, and and just I wish them luck. I wish them justice. I wish them
I don't wish that on anybody. Like, sorry, I wish all those things on them.
Yeah.
I don't wish that the circumstance on anybody. It's just that's heavy.
But I also think it's important that if you're out there and you see something, say something.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's a big lesson,
right,
and that can be a very redemptive part of this. If nothing else, it should teach us that if you see something, say something, because people saw and they said something, and that's why they know what they know, and that's going to help them crack this case if they're able to. So
well, as always, I'm pretty sure we offended somebody, and that's we're always trying to look to offend new people.
We're an equal
every time.
We're an equal offending opportunity.
Let's all gather around and get offended together. But anyways, until next episode. Sorry, this one was a little more somber, but I think it was real, and I think it was something we all need to talk about a little bit. But like I said, we'll return to form next week. I have a cool topic. It's interesting. I think it's gonna be fun to talk about. But until then, bye-bye.
See ya.
Peace.